Welcome back everybody. This is part 2 of the P-40B Tiger Shark, which is right here. The last episode we went over everything inside of the box, the decals, the directions and all that stuff. What we're going to do now is we need to make sure we have all of our parts inside. So we're going to check our instructions and make sure they coincide with the parts that we have. We have our parts right here. So if you scroll down a couple sections down, you'll see right here number 20. You don't have number 22 in between 21 and 23. This is normal, and then you scroll down a little bit further right here, you'll see there is a gap in between 45 and 48, so you're missing 46 and 47. All the parts are accounted for, they just skip some orders in the numbers, and even in the part sprues, you'll even see that they're not there. So we got step 1 here, what we're going to do. We've got our control stick, what we're going to put together. We've got our seat, our little man right here. Once we get those together and painted, we're going to put them on the floorboard over here, and then our flap lever. Let's get started. One thing we need to do before we start our model is to mix up all of our paints. I've got a little tool here that allows me to mix up our paints. You just turn it on, just makes a little noise and thing whirls and it mixes up our paint. Got a bottle here that is not mixed up, that way I can show you how to do this so you know how to mix paint properly. What we have here is a little bit of the oil in our paint, and we just need to mix it up with the clumpy stuff that's inside the bottom. So just grab your paint mixer, whatever you intend to use, stick it in there, be careful, and you can see just by looking in there that this hasn't been used in quite some time. So go careful with it, slowly turn it on, and you'll see it start to mix up the paint. Alright, now we've got our paint mixed up, it's really good here. We just need to take this, dab it out a little bit, get yourself some cleaner, and then just put the paint stick in the cleaner, turn it on, and clean off your paint. Got my jar cleaner. I'm going to take our paint that we just mixed up, that's on the stick, give it a couple of whirls in there. Should come out fairly clean. Be careful, don't drop anything. Once we do that, just take a paper towel, wipe off the paint. So as you can see, all these parts here that are labeled D, that means they all get painted the same color. So what I'm going to do is probably pre-assemble all these that are labeled D, that way they're already cemented and I don't have to worry about scraping any cement away, and we'll get that taken care of first. Using a hobby knife and a mat, I'm going to cut off all the parts that I need, that way I can cement them together to the base. So the first thing we need is this handle. We'll see that's marked number 2. Looks like it's right here. Just be careful, slowly cut that off. This indication right here is that it has tabs that need to be broken off, so we'll take our knife and we'll break those tabs off as well. So here are these tabs that we're going to break off. Lightly press with your knife, and you see they come right off. Turn this one this way, that's a thicker tab. It's that easy. We have our chair that needs to come off. That's got a little bit of marking still left on there, so we need to scrape that off. To do that, just take the edge of your knife, just lightly go along the edge like that. Now we're left with a nice clean chair. We have this piece here, this broke on the sprue before I even got the model out, and we can fix that. So we're going to cut this off right here. We're done with that. Got this to take off, so we're going to do that. Make sure that stays on. And our floorboard, which is right here, that's part number 4. So just slowly cut that off. Again, see if there's any excess that needs to be taken off. It looks like there's a little bit right there. So just go carefully with your knife. And be careful not to cut yourself. There we go. We'll glue these pieces together and we'll have a completed floorboard and cockpit assembly. When you read the directions, it always tells you that you want to make sure that your parts fit together very well. Got right here, this is our chair. So we want to put this together and just make sure it's exactly how we want it. As you can see, that fits together, and this is the piece that we'll glue together. So we've got that together, and it looks fairly nice, doesn't it? We need to take our joystick, goes right like this. flap stick goes in like this. So we're going to stick that in there, put a little bit of cement right there, not too much. Take our flap stick, stick it down inside there. Fits nice. This we might have to put a little bit of glue on. Hold that in place. That way it heals nicely since it came broken. Here we have the seat assembly completed, and we'll paint this up. After we're done painting, we'll paint our little guy and then we'll put that guy in there. So I've got my little guy here, and the instructions call for his whole suit to be tan. So I'm going to start with that and paint this tan while I wait for my other parts to dry that I cemented together. Take our little guy, I got a decent sized brush. Just slowly start working this way around. One thing I don't want to paint is the bottom side, because we're going to be gluing that to the bench. Our instructions call for the helmet and the boots to be brown, so we're going to paint those brown. Sometimes you get a little paint inside the cap. I just like to use that since it's already in there and I don't have to go inside the bottle. Our straps right here, they're supposed to be an olive drab green, so I'm going to paint those green. I've got a smaller little paintbrush here, as you can see. We also have to paint his goggles silver or aluminum, as the plans call for. I'm going to try something different and see if I can't use this marker just to paint his goggles silver. So let's see how this turns out. All we have to do now is paint him a little bit of skin tone. So I've got some skin tone paint here. We'll get his hands, just lightly scratch it on there. You can tell there's a little bit of a difference in between these colors. Get some of that excess paint off of there so it doesn't balloon up like it's doing. Get this hand right here. And then we've got his face, which we have to do. Shouldn't be too hard. Got his neck. Start with his neck. And this is a thinner paint, so just dab it along and it'll slowly fill in where it needs to go. Once his face is done, it might take a couple of coats to get it, since the rest of him is that green color from the mold. So we've got our guy here, he's painted up nice, he's got his tan suit, he's got his green harness on, his brown hat and his brown shoes. We're going to test fit him into the chair and see how he fits, just to make sure he fits okay, and then we can also see what we have to paint and not paint at the same time. Seems like he's a little bit of a tight fit getting in there. His back has this little notch where it goes into there. So if you look at that, you can see you don't want to paint where his feet go, and you don't want to paint the back right there. Other than that, you can kind of paint everything on here that solid color of chromate. Got my chromate green paint here, which calls for a lot of stuff on this model to be painted chromate green. And that seemed to be the typical thing back when they were doing World War II, and all the colors had to be chromate green on the inside. So I've got a good bit on here. Just going to take this, just slowly dab it on. Just be a little bit careful, watch where you're putting it. Watch for this part right here that broke off. Yours, hopefully it didn't. We've already test fitted our little man to see if it'll fit in here, which he does. We're going to put a little bit of glue on the back right here. Just a little bit, and then a couple right here on the pads. place this man in place. Once we do, our little chair will be done. Now that our little man is done, our next step is to work on the main fuselage. This concludes part 2 of our tutorial on how to build this P-40B Tiger Shark. As always, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like.